Shalom, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a live episode of Race Matters. It is Wednesday, August the 17th, 2022, and it is a great day to be alive and well. And I am so glad that you woke up today, and I'm glad that I woke up too. What are you going to do with the fresh 24 you've been blessed with today? I hope you made it a good one. And it's not over yet because you're talking to us again on a live episode of Race Matters. And tonight we are talking about growing up biracial. So, probably if we were to all get our DNA tested, we're all biracial.
Absolutely.
Right? But
Absolutely.
those ones who we call biracial, even though we all are, that's who we're talking to tonight. Now, we had a couple of guests scheduled, but for unforeseen reasons, they can't make it. But the show must go on, right? Like the big top. The show must go on.
Absolutely.
One of our co-hosts is biracial. And if you're faithful watchers of Race Matters, you already know that Rosie is biracial. Yay, Rosie is our guest tonight. And so we're also going to put the link in the chat. So if any of our audience members who happen to be watching, if you happen to be biracial, please share information, share answers to any of our questions that you care to in the feed. But also, too, if you want to be actually on the show with us, let us know. By saying something in the chat, but also to click the link and you'll be in our studio and we will let you on as long as you meet some guidelines. We don't use profanity on this show and we have to be fully clothed. No pajamas, no bonnets. We have to look like we have something to say and we want people to believe what we have to say. And clothing matters. Our appearance matters. So no bedroom action because, you watch social media, you see how people come on live, right? It's like, what are you doing? So we're not trying to have that here. So as long as you meet those two and other rules, just we keep it. We do this in love. Race Matters is a safe place to have a hard conversation. Everything we do is in love, even when we disagree. So those are some of the guidelines. And if you meet those guidelines, and we have to see your face, of course, so you have to have the camera on, then you can be a part of the show. And tonight, if you are biracial, we would love for you to come up. And one other announcement tonight, some of you, if you're faithful watchers of Race Matters, you probably noticed a fourth person who's here tonight. And we want to welcome our newest co-host, Egypt. Yay! Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.
Excited to have you join us.
He's back by popular demand. He was on our HBCU PWI show, and we've got rave reviews about the show, and we love him too. So we asked him to be a part of our show because we've been wanting a male voice. And so Egypt fits right in because he has the background, he has the intelligence, he has the wherewithal, the desire, all of that stuff. And he has a lot to say that we can learn from. So he's joining us, and we are so, so, so grateful. So without further ado, subscribe to the channel, like the page, like the video, share the video also so we don't keep all this great and wonderful information to ourselves. Share the video with friends and family on social media. And they can click the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever we're on. And when you click it, click all so you don't have to wonder. But we're on Tuesday through Thursday. Thursdays 9 o'clock, Wednesdays 8 o'clock. So those are the housekeeping things. Now we're going to get into the topic of the day, growing up biracial. Now, I'm just going to take a stab at it, and Rosie can obviously fill this in. It's hard growing up as a person of color, and I grew up in America, so it's difficult, challenging as a young person and, as an adult. How challenging is it to grow up biracial? Is it more challenging, less challenging, equally challenging? Sometimes I think, and I have heard, not recently, but previously, that, and again, this may be more so before than now, I'm not sure, and Rosie can answer this from her perspective, that people who are biracial tend to be forgotten. Right? Because, Black people, we talk about Black people. We're talking about white people. I don't mean in a negative way even. We talk about, Hispanic, whatever. But what about people who are multiracial? Right. Where do we fit in? Where do they fit in? Right? And so I'm wondering if Rosie had that experience. And in our dialogue tonight, Rosie, you can speak to that if you felt like, second-class citizen, even more so than just being a person of color, being persons of color within one body, right?
Well, what I can tell you this is in my family, among my brothers and sisters as well, it's not only Puerto Rican and Black, but we have Italian and Black. So we are multiracial. So we have a little bit of everything, and you have to deal with that on a perspective, because when you grow up, like with my sister, when she would be working at certain stores, Target and stuff like that, when she used to work at different convenience stores, a Puerto Rican would approach her and start talking Spanish, but she's Italian and Black. You don't know no Spanish. And immediately, once she said, I don't know what you're saying, I ain't Puerto Rican, and they say, oh, what, you embarrassed of your race? So they automatically took the perspective that she was a Puerto Rican who was denying who she was when she wasn't.
Right.
And then it would throw them off, because they would approach my sister and say something to her in Spanish, and I'd say, ella no habla español. She don't speak Spanish. And even though I'm not as fluent as I want to be, I could at least communicate. And I have to let you all know, once I came to the realization that my father was Puerto Rican, because I grew up until I was 13 thinking I was Black. And then when my father came to the house, I had to have an adjustment, because I had an attitude toward Puerto Ricans up until that age. And God gave me a valuable lesson. He said, you don't even know who you are, and you have the audacity to judge other people.
Wow.
And that was a valuable lesson to me, that I never racially profiled people, because I realized that I didn't even know who I was. And I had to readjust myself. And at that point, that's when I made the progress to learn how to speak Spanish, because I said, I want to get to know my father and his people. I want to know who I am, and I want to get to know everybody, and I want to be able to try to communicate. Because the funniest thing would be, when I would go to visit my father, he would pick me up at 13, 14. He would take me to the houses. I would hear all, that's what I heard. Yeah. And I was getting upset, because I don't know what these people are talking about. Why can't they talk English? I know they know English and stuff, but the half the time they were like, oh, she looks like Gloria, and this and that and this and that. And it was funny, because then my father would take me up to his father's room, who didn't speak English at all. And he would make my father get the guitar out of his closet, play the guitar, and sing to me in Spanish. And I told myself, I said, you know what? You need to get to know your other half. You have to find out who you are completely, because you're missing out on a side of you, and you can't get that back if you don't do something about it.
But that was quite at a young age, around 13.
Yeah, I was 13 years old, and yeah, so it wasn't, that by itself was an experience, and then, like I said, dealing with my sister's situations, and it really, you walk on eggshells. You really do, because people don't know how to address you. They don't know, they really don't know how to address you. And the bottom line is, address me like you would normally address anybody. I'm just somebody who's biracial. My sister's somebody who's biracial. My brothers and sisters are biracial. That's who we are. I've got nieces that have Japanese in them, and Puerto Rican, and all of these mixtures. We are the melting pot, America, and y'all need to get a grip and stop looking at each other differently, because we are the melting pot of the world, and we make up America, not certain ethnicities. We do, the people. We are all the same thing, people, human race. And if we can get a check on that, then we're halfway to fixing our problem.
So Rosie, what type of neighborhoods did you grow up in? Did you grow up in exclusively, Black neighborhoods?
Okay, well, firstly,
multiracial neighborhoods.
Well, it ended up being multiracial, but when my mother first moved in there, and I have to explain this to you all, because when I was 3 years old, my mother became a quadriplegic. She was paralyzed from the neck down. Doctors never knew what was wrong, but she was like that until she passed away, which was over 30 years. But I was 3 years old. But I do remember them telling the story when my mom first moved on that block. We were the first Black family, and she had gotten to know one family real well. And the lady, it was a white street. No, nothing but white families lived there. And the white lady came to the house and gave her a letter that was being passed around through the community to have her taken off of that street. They had a petition to get her off the street. And the lady brought it to the house. And my mom, she said, at this point, she was still walking. She lined her kids up on the grass, and she was real loud and boisterous. And she said, "These are my children." And she named each child. And she said, "These are my children. If you have a problem with them, come to me." She said, "But you better not mess with them." You know, because right then and there, they were already showing that we want you off of our block. So it started off like that. But by the time we were in high school, we had Asians next door to us. We had, it was multiracial on our block. And what was funny, I got to share this too. What was funny is, like, we grew up with a white community up until we were getting in the 10th, 10, 11, 12 years old, when it started becoming diverse. And my sister used to like the kid across the street, white kid, you know, and we had a black family that lived down the street, and we were walking to the store, and sure enough, they yelled out the N-word lover and lover, because they didn't like him being with my sister. And a street fight started between us and them. I mean, a street fight where we ended up having to go to court and everything.
Wow.
Just because they didn't like the fact that my sister liked him. And they didn't even realize we grew up with them. These are our friends. We didn't see it like that. But when they saw it, oh, that was offensive. And here they, I mean, we had a lot of issues in that area, but we grew up with Asians and everybody, and we were a community. Our street, we even had a dog that protected every child on our street because it was out there playing with us. And when their family members would come to visit them, if they went to pick up one of the kids, our dog would almost attack them because they didn't know those people, and they felt that they were protecting all of the children. She felt she was protecting all the kids in the community because she was everybody's dog. So it's, we grew up not thinking that way because, we grew up like we did, with, whites, Asians, Africans. We had an African family across the street, so, and a couple interracial families on our street. One lady, she was, her husband was white, and she was, I think she was Asian. So, I mean, we didn't see it like that, because we grew up with everybody, and it wasn't until I started working that I got a real good idea that I wasn't seeing equal. I'm not saying
how about during your schooling years, specifically with the schools you went to.
I went to the schools I went to in Camden. They had, this is how I view it. Okay, maybe other people don't. We were all poor. So everybody was there. You had poor white kids, poor Puerto Rican kids, poor, Spanish, poor Asian kids. Everybody that went to our schools were poor. So we didn't see anything but us having fun and playing. We didn't have a problem because we were all poor, And we even had one young boy, he was a white boy, but he refused. You could not even tell him he was white. He said, "I'm Puerto Rican." We were like, "No, you're white." "No, I'm not. I'm Puerto Rican." And he wouldn't even associate with the fact that he was white. He wanted to make sure, and he learned. I mean, he stayed with Puerto Ricans, spoke Spanish like crazy. I mean, he would almost get into a fight with you if you told him, "Man, you ain't Puerto Rican. You're white. Get a grip." "I ain't white. I'm Puerto Rican." So, I mean, it's. You have all, people trying to identify all of, with whoever they feel more comfortable with. You know what I mean? It's
right.
Whoever you feel more comfortable with. So our schools were integrated. My high school was integrated. We didn't see any difference. Again, we were all poor. That's all we knew.
Yeah, it's very interesting. that, and this is not so much, about biracial, but, as Black people, obviously, we have much more than we once had, but, it's often been said, and those who can relate, when you're growing up in a neighborhood, all your friends and families, and, how, at least how life used to be, and to say everybody was poor, but everybody was happy. So you didn't know you was happy.
Yeah.
Right. And then until you get older and learn, like, oh, other people have this and have that, but then you learn that other people aren't even that happy.
Right.
You know what I mean? They have money, and we were. I mean, okay, I can't say we because I ain't going poor. I ain't even going to lie. You know what I mean? That's not my story. Yeah. I'm saying, some of the stories is just like. So it's like you don't have to be. People associate unhappiness with being poor. That's not. It's not the case. It doesn't have to be the case, right? And so then
you see the disparity because like I told you all, my mom was a quadriplegic since I was 3, paralyzed from the neck down. She was denied disability.
Now, how can she be denied disability?
She was paralyzed from the neck down, but they refused to give her disability. My opinion, because if she got disability, she would have gotten the max that she would have gotten if she was on Social Security,
which she deserved.
So they refused to give her that. So they gave her Social Security, which was the lesser amount because, at 30 something years old, you ain't going to get that much in Social Security.
Yeah, true.
And she was in her 30s when she became paralyzed. So instead of giving her disability, they gave her the least amount that they could give her. We know why. Especially when you got people who are say they're stressed and they're getting disability. Why are you on disability? Because I'm stressed. What?
Right.
There's so many dimensions to us speaking about multiracial or biracial, and it's interesting because I was in Africa for about a month, and I remember being in Africa and telling them that I'm African, and they said, "No, you're American," but I know that the melanated skin that I have derives from the continent of Africa. So for them to not understand what I was trying to identify with was kind of hurtful, in a sense, So it's interesting to think about being multiracial. But then I think about what is race, what is race? What is ethnic background versus what is race versus what is like citizenship? Like there's so many different dynamics that go into like what you associate with your race. Some people feel comfortable saying they're Black. Some people feel comfortable saying I'm African American. It's just some people say I'm white. It's Hispanic. It's so many different dynamics that go into it. And I think for me, I know that a dominant trait in any person is brown or Black. For instance, if you have blue eyes in your family, the dominant trait automatically is brown. The only person that can birth white and brown babies, any shade of brown or Black, is a Black woman. So in my mind, I only identify with one race of people, which is Black, even though when we may have traveled to other places, we might have gotten fairer skin, sharper nose through evolving in the climate changes that we have been in. But if you look at where we started at in Africa, how the noses were wider and the skin was melanated to protect from the sun and so many different things, it's like I genuinely look at us as if we are all one. However, I think that there becomes a power struggle and dominance because of how society has set us up with if you are a fairer skin, you are more superior. And if you are darker skin, you are inferior. So now there's a power struggle there in this conversation. And then when you talk about somebody being biracial now, because they're biracial, if they grow up in a Black community, they're judged in a way because they're closer to white than they are to Black. And we have a certain association with white because now white people in our mind are superior. So we don't want to associate with you because you have a part of you that is a part of the people that consider themselves elitist over us. So it's a weird dynamic to be in, and I'm really appreciative of hearing some of the experiences that you have had, Rosie, and I just hope that as a country and as a world we can kind of progress a little bit more into understanding that it's not just about equality, it's about equity. It's about creating even playing fields for everybody, and the race that you are shouldn't play a part in if you get disability or if you are getting Social Security or certain job opportunities. we all are special in our own way, and I think that
Right.
we gotta just start loving more and caring
Yeah.
about people more.
And it's not about a color race, because that's man-made.
Yes.
We are the human race. It's about humanity,
Mhm.
and not, the structure we made to oppress, people economically,
Mhm.
right? So one group of people can say that they're better than, right? And they can keep the, economics, the education, the criminal justice system, and all the systems that exist, you know what I mean, as forms of oppression and subjugation, right? Just like you talked about the inferiority and superiority. One group has to be, higher in their minds than another in order to have this issue of race
Mhm.
be an issue at all, because that's why it was constructed. God didn't construct it that way. God constructed humanity. That's it, the human race.
And you know what? I've got to share this. It was funny to me because of how we are here in the United States of America. When you get there, when we went to, I just came back from Tulum, Mexico. We were in Mexico and we were in Tulum. Well, when you get there, you have to fill out a temporary citizenship paper to go and visit. And because of how it is here, it said ethnicity or something. It said where you were from, like what you, and I put black
Yeah,
because that's what we do here.
yeah,
And the woman, she said, "I know, no, mija, no black. You American, right?" I said, "Yes." She said, "We don't do this here. That's only in America." She told me. We don't do that here. So the fact that I thought I'm going by my American mindset. What ethnicity am I? Black? No, we don't want to know if you're black. We want to know if you're American, Mexican. We want to know that.
right.
And she crossed off black, and I was like, wow, if that ain't liberating, I don't know what is. Because now I realize they're not identifying me with an ethnicity. They're identifying me with what country I'm coming from.
Right.
And that was, I was, and my nieces, I was going to hurt them. They were laughing at me because they already have traveled before. So they knew to put them America or New Jersey or whatever they put. But they were like, "You wrote black?" I said, "Yeah, don't you in America?" They said, "Ethnicity, you write black."
All right.
I said,
Like,
"No, I wrote black." And she said, "No, you can't put black. We don't care what you are. We just want to know where you're from."
it's so crazy because I'm like, so what is ethnicity in conjunction with nationality?
Right.
Like I think that the woman that you spoke to was under the impression or the culture of Mexico is like, oh, they're Americans because they come from the country of America.
Right.
If it comes from Sweden, you say, oh, they're Swedish. Even if I'm someone who is British, but I'm black, I identify that they're black, but I say, oh, he's English.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like there's so many dynamics onto what
Right.
people associate ethnicity and nationality, and I think
Mhm.
those are separate, but at the same
Yeah.
time, they're two things that are used as indicators to identify who people are.
Right.
Right.
But it actually raises a question because I just realized that when it comes to like Black British, like they don't say they're African British, or
No,
in
they don't.
Australia, they don't say I'm African Australian, right?
Or how many times have you heard Caucasian Americans? I've
Right.
never heard Caucasian American.
They don't.
But
I
it's
don't even think they say African Australians or
right.
Australian Africans. I think that was that. I don't think. I know that was a term coined in like the 1970s by. I want to say it was Jesse Jackson. I could be. Don't quote me on that, but I know that it was something that was a term that because before that we were Negroes, and that before that we were colored people, and before that we were, just we have went through a multitude of different names that have identified us as Black people. So again, like, when I'm thinking about like biracial and multiracial and all these different things, obviously there's struggles within struggles, right? So someone who is biracial but associates themselves with black may not feel like they fit in with white people because they look black, or they may not feel like they fit with black people because they don't look black enough. That can be frustrating, right? Again, that's not my reality. But then there's also the spectrum of a black person in America not feeling like they're American enough, but then go to Africa like I did and not feel like I'm African enough. So now, what am I? So do I just identify as black, or can I say I'm African? Or now I have to say I'm African American. And when I do address myself to people, I say I'm an American African, meaning I'm from the continent of Africa who lives in America. So I feel like that is what I identify with more. However, saying to myself, and I heard it being said earlier, we are all multiracial. That is a hard pill for me to swallow, personally. Nothing against anybody else, but I think of myself as one race.
It is only one race.
Exactly. That has a derivative of multi-colored tones that have transcended after we started traveling throughout the world or the globe.
Well, again, it's only the human race. That's it.
That's it. It's one race. The
No
human.
color thing. Man made that up in order to be superior to others. That's it. The color change, again, like you said, being in a hot area versus a cold area, and the pigmentation of skin changing and whatnot. I looked up the definition of these, and this is the internet, so we're gonna take it, you know what I mean, for what it is. Race is defined as a category of humankind that shares certain distinctive physical traits. The term ethnicities is more broadly defined as large groups of people classed according to common racial, national, tribal, religious, linguistic, or cultural origin or background.
Now, even with that, say that you had a black child or a black family grow up with in a certain area. Well, that means that person, that black family that grew up in a certain community, in a tribal community that might have been Caucasian with blue eyes or whatever, but if they grew up together, then they really should be seen as the same community, the same tribe of people, because they're speaking the same language, they do the same things, they eat the same foods, they go to the same schools, they learn the same things, but yet you can, and according to what that reading said, they're no different than the Caucasian people that they have lived with for generations. But that's not how mankind sees it.
Now, American culture and law do not equate nationality with race or ethnicity, but with citizenship and an oath of permanent allegiance from the nation you're from.
And I think that matters for that reason, Rosie, right? Because like you said, right, we can be multiple races in terms of having distinct physical characteristics, but be part of the same ethnicity, right? Culture, because that's more reflective of like where you are born and where you grew up and your culture.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Hearing like Sharon, what you said, races, it's also weird for me, because then it seems like people can kind of choose where they decide they want to be at or what they want. But it's also interesting, because if somebody says they're Jewish, my thought process associated to that with a race, even though Judaism is a religion.
Right.
If I see a black person saying they're Jewish, I'm like, okay. But that's because in my mind it's associated with the Holocaust and the people that went through that struggle, and I associate people that are of color, not that people that are Jewish aren't, but black people in particular. I'm like, so it's like if you are saying that it's part of religion, but it's also like cultural. It's like, so what secular thing actually dictates what somebody's racial background is? And since it's not secular and it's multifaceted, then it's very challenging to even identify what race you really are.
Right. That's good.
Because we're the human race.
There is only one.
Get caught
That's what it comes down to, right?
Right. We get caught up in all of this conversation that we're having now, that really, if we were to look at it from a higher perspective, it doesn't even matter.
Right.
We're all human. We all cry when we get upset. We all bleed red blood. We all will die. We all were born. That's it. We love. We hate. We're human. That other stuff is irrelevant. But now, of course, we have to have the conversation, obviously. You know what I mean? Because in our humanity, you know, we get caught up in these divisions.
Right.
And because we, you know, one, yes, we want to know our background and things of that nature, but then we take it to an extreme that causes division within us, amongst us.
Right.
And that begins the battle. Not begins, but, you know, that contributes to the battle of the infighting, the humanity infighting. And I'm not saying we started it, but it started and we contribute to it. But with all the infighting, because I'm here, I'm from here and I'm better than you, or I'm lighter, I'm darker and I'm better than you, and all this nonsense, right? If we could just be human and love one another in our humanity and also cherish our differences that help us to be productive, right?
Exactly.
If everybody was the clone, then we would not be productive. We need our differences to help us get further in life, because we all bring something unique and special to the table. But we're so busy trying to divide and be better in our divisions that we're missing out on the great opportunity of coming together and producing something great. A man and a woman come together and produce a child. That's great. You know, the two sexes don't come together to produce that child.
Production will stop.
You know what I mean? You come together in your differences to produce greatness. But I don't want to get off on that. Sai has a comment. Sai says, you are a king, Mr. Fowler. You got some fans here, Egypt. Sai also says, yes, we are all human at the end of the day, but during that same day, we don't live through the same struggles. Absolutely, we don't. But it doesn't negate the fact that we are human. That's
Right.
all I'm saying. And we have Tanner, who is biracial, and she is in the waiting room, and she is going to join the show. Moderator, can you allow Tanner to join the show?
Hi.
Hi, Tanner.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Welcome.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So Tanner, tell us a little bit about yourself, whatever you care to share. You don't have to share anything you don't want to share, and then share with us what your racial background is, your ethnicity.
Okay, well, I'm 24. I'm from California, specifically Orange County. Grew up predominantly in a white area. I was raised by my mom's side of the family, so the white side, and then my dad's side of the family is from Northern California, Oakland and Atlanta. So I didn't really understand a lot about what it means to be biracial when I was a young kid, because I only saw pretty much the white side of my family. And it wasn't until probably like middle school, high school, where I'm like, all right, there's not a lot of people that look like me. And it was hard to find and understand my identity from who I was, more than just one part of me and one side of me.
Right. Wow.
And your dad is, what's his ethnicity?
He's Black. So I did Ancestry. I did the whole thing because I was curious to know, okay, well, I know that I'm Black, but what regions? Like, I need to know like the bits and pieces of it. So it goes all the way back to Cameroon, to Benin, to Togo. So all those areas. So I think now, as I've grown up and become more of an adult and have taken more responsibility of like, okay, like this is a part of me. And I cherish and I love my Black side. I love my family. I love the history, the rich history behind it, and how important it is to me, and the things that I didn't even know about or like considered like, oh, this comes from that. So I take it as a responsibility for me to educate myself and to know and to love and cherish that, because I didn't always grow up being around it.
So Tanner, I'm gonna ask you a question, because I have a cousin. It's my mom's sister, and her father is white, right? And of course, my aunt's Black. And she had shared with us one time where she worked, because like if you see my cousin, you really don't know that she's got black in her.
Right.
You know? I mean, she really does look more white than she
Mm-hmm.
does black. And she said that one time they were having an office party, a party at the job, and she
Mm-hmm.
brought her mom. And once they saw who her mom was, all of her friends stopped talking to her because now they realized she was black.
Yep.
Have you ever experienced on either side? I'm not talking about just a white issue or a black. Either
Right.
side. Have you ever experienced where, when people got to know who you really were, that they started to shy away from you, or they started to second guess, their relationship as a friend with you, or anything like that?
Yes. So I started to experience that more in high school. I had one friend of mine who, just through conversation, I don't know how we got to the conversation, but it came up, that my dad's black, my mom's white. The next day, she came into school and told me that she could no longer be friends with me because she told her mom, and her mom, I guess, was not a fan of that. I've had some. It's a really cliche like thing to say, but the whole too white for the black kids, too black for the white kids is something that I actually lived. It's so cliche to say, but it's like it's real. On one part, I would be around, like friends who are white, and I'm just like, they're like, oh my gosh, like you're so black, and it was the stereotypical things. Like I was probably maybe three or four kids at my high school that that were black, and for my birthday people showed up and brought a watermelon and Kool-Aid packets and fried chicken and gave it to me on my birthday, and thought it was someone nicknamed me Africa. And then I would have friends who are black, who are full, who show it more than me, and it's just like, you're so like, you're white, like you can't even say that you're black. Like, so it's just like, as a kid, I'm like, I don't even know like what this is or what, because it felt like I didn't fit in anywhere, right? And then I wasn't enough for either side.
Let me say, I'm laughing, but this is a serious thing, because I know how you can fit. You just can't fit in on either side, because each side. My sister and stuff used to come home with bubble gum in our hair because our hair was too nice. You know what I'm saying? Things like that. My mom, even though she was black, but she was, I guess back in the day, they would call them red bone. They were, the light-skinned black people, with the beautiful hair and stuff, because our family had Indian in them. So they had that beautiful long hair. My mom used to have to fight in school. They would put bubble gum in her hair, spit in her hair, do stuff like that. And things like that, because she, and these were the black kids she was going to school with. So it's like, you're not accepted here, you're not accepted there. And the thing that would bother me most, especially when I started working, is the comfortability in them saying ethnic jokes and thinking just because I'm their friend that I'm supposed to swallow it and laugh with them and think it's okay. And I had to address some of them. I had to pull them aside. Listen, that ain't going down like that. I was told by a gentleman, a white older gentleman, he said, "Hey, Rosie, let me tell you something. Black is beautiful, but white is right."
That's crazy.
And he thought that was a joke. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is, just because you laugh with them, you work with them, you associate with them, they think they can say things like that, and we're supposed to be, oh, that is so funny.
Right.
No, funny. You just said something racial, and if I wasn't a friend of yours, I'd punch you right in your face. And that's how I felt. It was like, you, dude, and you're an older gentleman. I was like, dude, you just don't know. You would have been laid flat if we were in the street.
Ever feel like pressure from either group, black or white, either side, to make that the side that you identify with more?
I wouldn't necessarily say pressured. In that sense, it was more, I feel like, as far as around people who are black, I felt more pressure to prove it to them, like felt like I needed to prove it more because I don't show it as much, or because of I was raised the majority of my white side because either the way that I speak or I didn't understand certain just cultural staple Black things because I wasn't raised on them. So I think when I was younger and growing up, I felt like, okay, well, I have to prove this. No, I am. Like, let me show you a picture. Like, I am. Like, this is what my dad looks like. So you believe me. I'm not just lying about it. So it was like, it was that sort of thing. And I had to come to terms of just like, at the end of the day, everyone has their own standard of what someone who's Black looks like, someone who's biracial. They have their own, perceived idea that, okay, this is what it looks like. But really, it comes in all shades, sizes. And at the end of the day, your opinion of me, whether you think I'm enough or I'm not enough, does not, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, my dad's Black, my mom's white, and I'm a product of them. So,
and it doesn't define you. It doesn't define who you are.
Exactly.
Do you feel like you got more flack from the Black community or the white community being biracial? Like, what part? I mean, well, one, what do you identify with, I guess, more? And then where do you feel like you got the most flack at because of what side you decided to be a part of, or not be a part of, but associate with more? Or I'm just curious as to what that struggle was like.
I would say, well, whenever, from as long as I can remember, whenever anyone asked me, I always say like, oh, I'm Black and white. Like, I always said both. That's just something that I always remember saying. As far as, I'm sorry, your other question was, what was it? My bad.
Like, I guess, like, who gave you the harder time? Like, you being around white people that realized you were Black, or you being around Black people that realized you were white? And what, like, do you associate yourself with? Do you associate yourself with one side more than the other?
I think more pressure from the Black side, as far as like not believing it or making me prove it. The white side was more like idealized it more than pressured it. Was like, oh my gosh, like, oh, like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just like my music taste, or like the way that I danced, or what I was into, how I dressed. It was more like, oh, this is like so cool. There were some instances that were more of like, obviously, the not being friends with me and then giving me the fried chicken and the Kool-Aid. But as I got older, it was more like more pressure, I felt like, from the Black side. And associated with, I feel like, comfortability wise, I feel more comfortable with my Black side and my Black friends and my Black, like, I feel like I identify, I can, like, the things that we're interested in, how we act, like, I just feel more at home there.
Do you feel more accepted there with the Black community?
I think it depends. It really depends. I think the people who I have around me and who I surround myself with, most definitely. I think it just really depends on the group of people.
Yeah. I have a niece who actually, she had to take a picture from our family reunion to her school friends, because when she told them, they were hanging out and laughing, this and that. And she said, and they said, yeah, but Emily, you ain't, I said her name. Ooh, sorry. They said, you ain't going to understand this because you're not Black. And she said, yes, I am Black. And they're like, no, you're not. There is no way you're Black. And when we went to a family reunion, she said, Titi Rosie, I got to get pictures. And then she took it back and she said, hey guys, I just came from one of our family reunions. And she started showing the pictures, and they were like, they still couldn't, that's not your family. You just went with somebody. You probably just went there with some friends and dressed them off as your family. And she was like, no, this isn't.
I would not go through all that trouble.
But when you got some people today, when they want to be a part of their friends, and then their friends don't accept what they tell them, they're like, I gotta prove it. And I'm like, listen, you ain't gotta prove nothing. But still, she was like, look, this is my family. And that's because they were, it was a number of Black kids with them. So the Black ones are, they ain't no Black in you. And when she showed them pictures, that's just the friends that you went with, and you trying to pass them off as your family, because like Egypt said, the shades in our family, Guys, we say this because it's a joke, but we say this. They run from purple to pasty.
There you go.
We go
And they're
from
all family, right?
I'm not lying. We go from purple to pasty in our family. You'll meet some of our family, and you're like, "Come on, wait a minute. Y'all can all be related."
And that's possible. Yeah, you can all be family.
Yeah.
Here's Jenna for you. Like, at what age did you start to realize, that you had, like an additional part of who you were, and that wasn't common for the people around you? And do you remember those initial years when you were young?
I think, I think I definitely always knew, because even though I was raised majority by my white side, I would still go and visit and see my black side. So I always knew, obviously the different sides. I noticed just a little bit probably when I was like 7 or 8. I remember in gymnastics, and someone had came up to me, and they're like, majority of it kind of is hit or miss, but sometimes people look at me, they can't tell what I am. Some people can right off the bat be like, "Oh no, I can tell that you're mixed." Some people are like, "I don't know." But I think getting a lot of comments of just being like, "Oh, like you look so like exotic. Like what are you? Like, are you this? Are you that? Are you?" And so I think hearing that is kind of like my first kind of like, okay, I know I have these two different sides. I know I don't necessarily look like everyone around me, but that was kind of more of where I was more like aware when I was like probably like 7 or 8. And then when I got into high school and experienced those things with the students there is kind of when it hit me a little bit more.
I'm really curious, and I guess this will go for Mariana. Because where do you originally derive from, or your parents?
Sorry, say that again. You're cutting out.
I'm sorry. I was asking Mariana, where is she from?
Oh, me?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize. I thought you were asking Tanner. Yeah, so I am from Republic of Moldova. Used to be part of Romania, right at the border with Ukraine and Romania. Yeah.
Okay. So like with some of the things that I said earlier, because you are from that region of the world, and someone like me, I would suggest that all persons or people came from the continent of Africa, and as they traveled throughout the world, they started to get a more fair skin, and their different things or facial features started to change to be able to navigate or be able to be in these spaces to survive and adapt. What do you think about that concept or that thought? Because you are a fair skin, do you think that is a possibility? I'm just curious as to what that thought is like for you, hearing that coming from somebody who is Black.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think if anything, that shows how adaptable we are, right, as human beings, that we can adapt to the environment where we are in order to survive.
Does racism exist at the level that it does in America there?
And some yes and no, absolutely, in the sense of like colorism. And I think people are hearing the experiences of Black students trying to cross from Ukraine into like Poland and so on at the border. So yes, and like for us, it was a lot surrounded even like having blue eyes versus being a brunette. So like here I'm light skinned, but there I was a brunette, and
Right.
having blue eyes and being blonde was what was seen as more beautiful.
Wow. Yeah. I asked that because I know that in different regions of the world, the idea of being Black or also being ethnic or whatever the case may be, whatever you want to call it, I was just curious as to like what it's like over there, because I only understand my reality, which is here in America, and also the little bit of glimpse that I got when I was in Africa. And I guess because I'm hearing Tanner speak now and I'm hearing you on the difference in a different country, I'm just like, well, one, I'm grateful that you guys are open to hearing some of the things that even I'm saying. 'Cause I know sometimes people be like, it's outlandish, but also like I do want to apologize, I guess, for some of the experiences that you may have went through, Tanner, as growing up, like hearing the fried chicken stuff and stuff like that.
That's heart-wrenching.
But also on the Black side, knowing that like I too have probably in my lifetime have seen people that were biracial and be like, what? No, you're not. Not intentionally, but because it didn't come off to me looking as such. But then once I do recognize it, at least myself, I'm able to be like, you know what? They are. to me personally, when I see somebody biracial, I say that they're black because it is the dominant gene. Which again, that may be incorrect to some people, but but for me, that's just what I say, that they are black. But I appreciate hearing your guys' perspectives, as well as you as well, Miss Rosie.
And I asked Mariana this earlier, I think before the show started, but I'm going to ask on the show so that everybody can get a perspective of what we talk about too. But I had asked her, and I'm going to just ask you again, Mariana, what kind of, like, did you ever feel looked at funny when you came here to the United States because you had an accent and stuff? Because even that is a problem when people, you see somebody and you're automatically thinking they're one thing, and then they open their mouth and have an accent. And then all of a sudden they start prejudging you. Oh, who is she? Where is she from? She, and so what kind of experience did you have with that when you came?
Right. Yeah, and actually that's absolutely a reason, other than really hearing your experiences and truly believing that, knowing like what my experience has been like from, I can go to a grocery store and like not speak to anyone, right? And people respond one way. And then the moment I respond, people like, stop and will ask where you're from, or in some cases you start to like, get a pushback. In many professional settings, there was a lot of like, needing to prove that, you can really be a professional.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. And then when I came, I didn't speak any English at all. So there was that part too. I was a teenager, 14 in high school, and I knew maybe like 10 English words.
Right. Hopefully you never were told, and I'm just throwing this out there to see if you have been, go back to your country.
Right. I knew you were going to say that.
Because you know how we were born and raised here.
Right.
We're told, go back to your country. And I'm like, I am. But have you ever experienced that where somebody, just because of your accent and stuff, they got an attitude and say, why don't you go back to your country? Have you ever experienced that at all? I pray not, but.
Not directly, which I think, Sharon, when we did that project on racism in our class, we were, Sharon and I got to really know each other. I joined the topic of race, but then I focused on immigration and race. And I think that's something that immigrants of color hear a lot more.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have an intriguing, I'm going to say it's intriguing question for Tanner, and then for you too, Rosie. And of course, if you don't want to answer it, it's fine. Or you might answer it and then not give the association. Okay. So have you ever used your ethnicity to your advantage? Because you may have heard the term passing. Have you ever tried to pass to get a benefit? So I'm going to use my white side because this is going to benefit me to get my foot in the door for this job, let's just say. Or I'm going to use my black side so I can get this, scholarship or whatever. You know what I mean? Have you ever tried to pass in any way to benefit yourself?
Never. Whenever I've applied for a job or whatever it is, or if it's your license or the test that we used to do in school, and they would ask, like, I would always, whenever I could do both, I would do both. If I couldn't do both, I would do, I think I would do other. So I feel like I've never intentionally done that, but I understand that already, whether I'm intentionally doing it or not, I already have a privilege because I can be white passing depending on who's looking at me.
Right.
So I already know that there's privilege in that. Which is not, obviously not my intention. It depends on who's looking at me and the choices they make because of that. But intentionally, never, because I'm proud of everything that makes of me, whether it's seems bad to others or, it's who I am. So that's how I always want to present myself.
And as for me, being Black and Puerto Rican, I'm on the negative side of Caucasian American anyway. So I could pass as Black or Puerto Rican. They don't want either one. But
I knew you were going to say that, Rose.
But the thing is, I can tell you this, that I experienced at my job that that I used to work at, when they had they were doing a teaching on how to talk to your customers, how to present yourself when you go to a customer's house. Because what I used to do for a living, I'll let Egypt and Tanner know, because I used to be a utility worker. I used to climb poles, go in crawl spaces, do all of that, hook up lines and stuff, phone lines and all of this. So I was out there in the field. And I remember they were doing a sensitivity training where how to talk to people. And they showed a video, and they were on the video. It was like, "Hello, my name is Rose." I'm saying my name, but the video was like, "Hi, my name is Rosalina. I am with this company, and I'm here to do this." And they were showing the video to everybody, and then they started to go on to each person and saying, "Okay, now." They wanted everybody to act it out. So they got to me. I said, "I can't act that out." And they were like, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Because it don't work in my world." I said, "Let me show you how it works in my world." I go to Cherry Hill. "Hello, my name is Rosie. I'm with this company. I'm here to work on your such and such. How are you?" Da-da-da. I said, "I'm in Camden. Yo, what's up, bro? You got an issue with your phone? Give me a hook. Let me hook. Yo, sister, why don't you hook me up? Because I don't play like that, bro. I'm in Camden." But then I'm in certain parts of Camden. "Hola, mi nombre es Rosalina. Yo estoy aquí para reparar tu teléfono." So now I got to shift again.
Right.
And so the video you're showing,
That was really good.
I said, it don't work for me. I said, what works for me is whatever community I'm working in. I said, little do you all know, I said, I have to shift every time, because I can't act like I can't bring my Camden self out when I'm in certain parts of Cherry Hill and stuff like that in Haddonfield. I said, but I sure can't act like that. You will never get me going to Camden and say, "Hello, my name is Rosie." They're going to say, "What's wrong with you?"
Right. That's funny. We could call it code switching.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I told him I'm multilingual, because I got to be.
Yeah, and
where I'm going to be at, and I can't do that in every community, because it makes you a beacon in certain communities.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm curious for you, Tanner, and Egypt as well, because of certain educational settings, or you being with your white family versus black family. Do you have to do a lot of code switching as well?
I think I do it sometimes naturally. I think probably a little bit more with the white side of my family, just because there's just certain things, certain phrases, just a lot of different things that they don't understand or wouldn't get or can't say with me, or just it's not for them. So I do find myself I want to say a little bit censoring of just okay, but it's also been natural in a way because of I grew up with them. So, but I do notice a little bit more there, but as well as the black side, sometimes it's almost like I can't be myself there either, depending on who I'm around. So if I am saying certain things or just being myself, and they're kind of like, that doesn't really fit what you look like, so I know that you are, but this is it's a weird
with Tanner's feed.
Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
I think Sharon's frozen.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, some of the pictures are going out on my end.
Yeah, and you're frozen to us, Sharon. Yeah. Go ahead, Tanner. You said you struggle with trying to go ahead.
Yeah, I just feel like there's a little bit of judgment on both sides sometimes, and sometimes with me being myself in certain areas, especially with the black side, it's just sometimes for the people who don't know me and are around me, they'll kind of look at me and be kind of like I know that you are black, and I feel like this doesn't, they're just kind of confused by it.
Mhm.
So I kind of, it really depends on who I'm with and who I'm around. But I notice more so with like the white side of like, okay, now this is a space where this is where I am. And I'll say that for people who I'm comfortable with, and
Right.
I can be everything and not just one side or one part.
And do you find the younger ones accept that more, like you're being able to switch up and they're like cool with it because they're used to it and they're younger? Do you feel like the younger family members and friends and stuff accept it more, or is there no difference? Like the older family will be what I'm trying to get at is like if you show up at at a family function, the older ones, if you were talking a little bit more on with your black, talk or however you do it, do the older white family members be like, why is she talking like that? And the younger ones be like, Mom, that's the way she talks. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say like they wouldn't even know to like be like, oh, that's that.
Right.
Because it's more of like me and my brother, like around me and him, like, obviously we do our thing, we talk how I talk.
Yeah.
But I think it's always been like natural and instinct, like when we're at that side of the family, like it just doesn't come out. Because
Right.
it's like we don't talk to them that way and they don't respond back to us that way.
Right.
So we've almost never learned to use it there. If that makes sense.
It does, because like I said, when I would go into certain communities to work, I wouldn't use my Camden voice and language. I would automatically shift because I knew that if I talked the way I would normally talk, I would make them uncomfortable, and they may not even want to let me in their house, which has happened before, not because of how I was talking, but just when they saw who was coming.
Right.
Then I think I even acted out more of a proper way when I would notice that I'm making them uncomfortable. I think I would actually even more try to be more proper and to make them feel comfortable, because I was there to do a job. And I knew as soon as they saw me walking up on the porch, they started like, you could see in their face, they weren't comfortable with this situation. And then I would, hello, how are you? My name is, my voice would raise.
Right, I got to pull out this file.
I had to raise my voice because normally I'd be like, hey, how you doing? My name is Rosie. And I had to, hello, how are you today? Right. It is so good to meet you. I had to perform.
Right.
I had to perform just so that I could do the job.
Yeah, I feel like even so too, that I've noticed is sometimes I can get stuck in that, or even me just being like, I'm more of like a reserved person. So sometimes like if I'm in that state for too long and then I'm around people who are just starting to get to know me, I'm already quiet, I'm already to myself. And then especially people who are like Black and they're just getting to know me, like a friend group that I'm in, that's majority of them are Black, and they kind of got to know me as like, okay, she's the quiet, to herself, reserved Tanner. And now I'm starting to feel more comfortable because I feel like this is a space I can be myself in. So I'm like, okay, well, I feel like I can now be all of me, and I'll tap more into my Black side. And then they're like, whoa, like, wait, you don't talk like that. Like that's not you. And it's just like, no, I just have layers and I'm more reserved, but I'll have a little bit of that too, which at times can make me feel like, okay, go back in my small box.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
It's a lot. For many of us, especially, Black people, I can't speak for all of us, but I would think, the whole code switching thing, it comes so natural. It's not like we have to think like, okay, I'm in this environment, now let's talk like this. It's just a flow. It's just as natural as you say your name.
Yep.
How you talk wherever you are or wherever we are. Mariana, I have a question for you. Do you ever, being Caucasian, being white, do you ever find yourself code switching? Because, we do it as people of color because we know the world we live in, right? Yeah. But being white, what's your, personal?
I actually do it a lot in Romanian because, so the Romanian from Romania is more proper. The Romania from Moldova is very mixed with Russian, and the words are like cut shorter, like the way like in Puerto Rico, they'll speak a much faster Spanish and like maybe cut some of the words. Like that's how we speak Romanian. And a lot of the times Romanians won't understand us Moldovians because we throw a lot of Russian words in there as well. So when I speak with Moldovians, I'm gonna like speak the way we speak. And actually almost all the words have a different pronunciation that it's hard for them to understand us. And then of course, like because they wouldn't understand us very well, I would do that. But then, and we tried, you know, me and my siblings and some of us, because we're always like interested in like academics and whatnot. Like sometimes we'll try to speak more proper, and people are looking at us like, "What do you think you are? Like you're Moldovan? You don't need to do that with us here, you know." So you know, because of that, you just kind of like let it go and just like be yourself, depending on who you are around.
I can't tell you how many times growing up I was from my Black friends. Oh, you talk like you're white, right? And you just have to, brush it off and keep it moving. But, it's because I speak properly, but yeah, so it's a natural thing. Is that your experience, Egypt?
I think that when it comes to trying to get into a position, whether it be more, I guess, specifically a job, oftentimes I will find myself code switching to meet the standard of what it means to sound white, even though that I know that I'm Black. But I'm listening to Tanner, and I've never thought about like, do I speak different? Like, you speak differently when you're in front of your homies versus when you're in front of your girl. You speak differently in front of your parents than you do to speak in front of your friends.
Right.
So I think that code switching is an innate thing that we all do. But to think that I have to code switch per race is it's something that I haven't. I mean, that's unfortunate that we do have to do, and it is a day-to-day thing, whether you are biracial or you're one race, because you feel like you have to identify with a business. Which is more white, where you have to identify with your friends who are speaking more Ebonics, which is for our understanding, though, because we have these lingos and these little nuances that help us understand one another. So I think that code switching is a natural part of like who we are as people. But unfortunately, to think that I have to code switch to get in a position of power is unfortunate. So I should be able to be myself as my most authentic self, and I should be good to go so long as I'm qualified for the job.
And Egypt, with your experience, with what you have done in your life prior to being on this show, being a public speaker and things of that nature. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure the Ebonics is not coming out when you're, in front of the camera. Now, depending on what you're in front of the camera for.
I was just about to say it honestly all depends, because
when you're representing the companies, because you do brand ambassadorships and stuff like that. That's what I'm talking about. Now, when you're doing your own thing with your own show and all that, now, but I'm not talking about your own thing. I'm talking about when you're representing another company or people who you work with, your job, you're in law school now, stuff like that.
So I think that like when I was working with Revolt, I could have a little bit more Ebonic because it was a Black network.
Right.
So, and we were talking about hip hop and rap. So if I was talking about hip hop and rap like this, it would not be the same. It wouldn't carry the same weight. You know what I mean? However, if I'm on Spectrum News, I would try to articulate myself in a way that is compelling to all audiences, and they can understand how I'm speaking and the diction in which I'm speaking in, simply because I want people that aren't Black to see that even though I am Black, I have the ability to articulate in a way that can be spread amongst all communities, and you can't judge me no matter who you are. And unfortunately, I shouldn't feel like that, but because of how Ebonics or Black lingo or cultural lingo goes, it's not seen as the lingo or the correct way to communicate. So I try to hold myself to a different, which is unfortunate that I'm saying that this is a different standard, but the standard at this current moment is what it means or what it sounds to be white.
Well, that's just because of society. It's not anything that you have done or created, because if you had your way, it wouldn't be that way. But again, we do, matriculate within a society that, dictates certain things, that if we want to do certain things and get a certain place, then, we do it.
Yeah.
Right. But it doesn't make us any less of who we are. I just understand the game and I'm going to play it to get where I want to go.
Right. We need to survive in all these spaces, right?
Exactly.
So you do it however you'll be accepted more. And all of us want to be accepted So we just kind of
And
do what's
the only time that bothers me is when I do that switch, to meet when I'm meeting a certain group of people, when they go, "Oh, well, you're actually intelligent. What made you think I wasn't?" And that's the only time it will bother me. Because other than that, like Egypt said, and like Sharon said, it's such a natural flow. I mean, as soon as you get in a certain environment, you automatically, it just innately shifts. And you just start, hanging out and talking with them. And then they say, "Oh, you're actually intelligent." Well, what did you think? I was actually ignorant, or and that's when it becomes a little bit of a problem, when they act like that, when they're like, "Oh, wow, you're smart. You're
right.
That's all right.
Well, you know what? It is 9:17. We are way past our hour.
You're way past my bedtime too.
Right. I think it might have been her connection, but Tanner, we want to thank you for
joining us
and sharing all that great and wonderful knowledge and experience that you have had growing up biracial. And we wish you all the best, and much success for all your endeavors. And again, thank you for joining us tonight. And Egypt, we thank you for again joining us on this platform, being our
yes.
Thank you so much for gracing us with your skills and your talent and your handsomeness. Adding that male presence that we need on this program.
Yes.
Definitely. So we will be back next Wednesday at 8 p.m. And I can't even remember the topic. What's the topic for next week, ladies and gentlemen? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't remember.
I know colorism is
I think colorism was coming out. No, next week is actually the last one, so I think it will be current events.
Okay.
Oh, that's right.
No, that's the 31st. We got 2 more weeks before the 31st. So it's colorism and code switching. Actually, it's next week. So we're all rolling already.
Okay.
Right? So that's our show next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Those of you who watched on the live, thank you so much. Those of you who watch on the replay, thank you as well. If you're watching the replay, still put your comments and questions in the chat. We do go back and answer and comment on anything. If you ask us something, we do go back during the week and check that out. So please do so. We appreciate you watching on the replay. And whenever you watch it, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It helps us to grow and helps us to be able to bring more content to you. So please subscribe to the channel, like the Facebook page, like the video, share the video, and click the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever we are on, and click all so you don't have to wonder, when is Race Matters on? You'll just get it and you'll know it and you don't have to think. So thank you guys, my wonderful co-hosts. I love you all. Thank you for being a part of the show. And audience, we love you too. Have a God evening. Have a God week. Shalom.
Shalom, everyone. Thank you, Tanner.
See you guys.